The Keller Independent School District has been educating the youth of our community for 100 years.
As we celebrate this historic moment in the history of our schools, we'll look back at what has made Keller ISD the school system it is today.
Because although much has changed from the small farming community it was at the beginning of the 20th century to the bustling suburban center it is now, Keller ISD has always strived for educational excellence and providing the best possible educational opportunities for its students.
Through challenges of growth and size to unforeseen calamities and trials, Keller ISD has remained united in its efforts to prepare all of its students, north and south, east and west, to make a positive impact on the world and make KISD proud.
A commitment to excellence. In 100 years, Keller ISD's priority has remained, and the foundations established have paved the way for even greater future achievements.
For the majority of Keller ISD's history, educating the district students took place on the corner of Price Street and College Avenue, the current site of the Rock Gym and Keller ISD's administration building.
Until the 1930s, the majority of learning took place in a modest two-story, four-room schoolhouse and some additional wood-framed buildings along College Avenue. With all grades sharing the same facilities, great focus and effort has to be undertaken by the district's early educators to be sure that everyone is given an opportunity to succeed. As a highly agricultural society at the time, many students had to balance school with physically intense labor back home.
While the Great Depression marked one of the most trying periods in U.S. history, it represented Keller ISD's first great advancement in the pursuit of exceptional facilities. As the community grew, residents and the school board saw a need for a central meeting place. At the time, most events or big gatherings took place in local churches.
In 1934, as part of the Civil Works Administration, the Keller Recreation Center, more commonly known as the Rock Gym, was constructed at a cost of $16,000. The rock and petrified wood used to construct the building's walls were unusual to the town, and most residents were intrigued by its construction and design. On October 28th of that year, the entire community came out for a celebration commemorating the opening of the building.
Civil Works Administration was not known to build buildings. As I understand it, they were more into building roads, doing that type of construction. But there was a call for some of the school districts, and I think there's either 3 or 4 of them, and I may be wrong there, but I know there's very few. They built some kind of structure for several school districts in North Texas. The structure they built here, of course, is the Rock Gym. That is the center point as far as Keller is, as far as I'm concerned.
It would go on to be used constantly until the development of a new high school campus nearly 30 years later, hosting not only sporting events, but proms, dances, graduation ceremonies, community events, and at one point in the late 40s, it was even used as a roller skating rink and a public theater. The Rock Gym was the center of the community, and the Keller ISD had the top-notch facility its students could be proud of.
I remember in the 70s, you could go roller skating in the Rock Gym where the board meets today. And I remember, you had to be careful because the termites had eaten away the gym floor. And in the back, there's still a fireplace back there that was used to keep the building warm. And I think there's probably still some graffiti from all the different classes that used to call that, home. The Rock Gym is probably the biggest jewel that Keller has, and that connects its current aspect with its history.
4 years later, Keller ISD constructed a new school building to accompany its recreation center and further state its intentions to provide the best it could for its students. The building still housed all the district students. However, it lasted only 10 years. In the fall of 1948, a fire destroyed the majority of the building, along with the school's district records, depriving future generations of much knowledge of the district's infancy.
We were out for recess that morning there on the end of that parking lot down there at the end of the administration building was a ball field. And it was a pretty cool morning, and I'd left my one and only school jacket back in the room. So I went back in to get that. Fortunately, got back out, and then we started seeing smoke there, and the building subsequently burned.
And Mr. Simpson came down through and told all of us to get out of the school. And of course, we all run out to school, out into the 1709 road was there. It was always there. We ran out there, and by that time the school was ablaze. And I remember very distinctly Mr. Simpson, as the school was burning, he had a sport coat on, and I remember him putting his sport coat over his head, and he went back in that school and went through every room to make sure there were no children left in that school. And it was burning.
Only 2 classrooms survived the fire and were able to be cleaned and reused. Still, the spirit of learning could not be stopped. Classes would continue for a period throughout various locations around town, before war surplus buildings were purchased by the district and brought in as temporary classrooms.
In 1951, the first Keller ISD elementary school was built adjacent to the rock gym on the site of the previous Keller School building.
Back in those days, Keller was a small, rural community, close knitted together. All of us kids that went to school were more or less like brothers and sisters instead of just students, because we were raised together, brought up together, and spent the night with each other through the week and through the weekend.
Meanwhile, the district continued to slowly grow and began to further development in its educational offerings to best prepare its older students for their future. On the site of what is now Keller Middle School, the district's first high school began to develop. Structures were built and more war surplus buildings were brought in to support programs such as science, agriculture, and homemaking.
It was also during this time that the district experienced some of its greatest achievements in athletics, dominating district opponents in nearly every sport, with the famed 1957 Keller High football team winning a regional championship with an 11-1 record.
By the time the 1960s rolled around, Keller High School was taking shape with athletic facilities including a new gym and football field and a dedicated lunchroom. Meanwhile, as the population rose, Keller ISD met the needs of its elementary school students, adding classrooms to accommodate additional 2nd and 3rd grade students.
Modest growth and change did not keep Keller ISD from remaining committed to providing for its students, and in the decades to come, the district would prove it was ready to respond to any challenge it faced.
For 60 years, everything Keller ISD did, from learning to sporting events to fine arts, took place along College Avenue, either at the original school site or the new high school site off Lorraine Street.
Things changed in 1973 as Keller ISD ventured from its longtime home for the first time, building a middle school campus near Bear Creek. What would eventually become today's Bear Creek Intermediate School was just the first step in a new journey for the district as it committed itself to meeting the needs of all the students within its boundaries.
In the early 70s, DFW Airport opened, bringing additional growth to the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. As it grew, what once was just fields and farmlands on the east and southwest outskirts of the district's boundaries were now seeing a rise in residential developments.
Florence Elementary opened in 1977 as the district's second elementary campus to serve residents in the far eastern portion of the district. A year later, plans were in the works for Parkview Elementary, and when it opened in 1980, the suburban Fort Worth School was Keller ISD's first campus outside the Keller city limits. The trend would continue in 1985 when the district opened Whitley Road Elementary in Watauga. The district proved it would go where it had to go in order to assure all of the district's students could achieve educational excellence.
In 1984, Keller ISD completed its biggest construction project to date when it opened a new campus on the corner of Johnson and Pador Roads. With enough room for a growing high school population, the campus replaced what then became Keller Middle School.
That summer, they told us, pack up your room, we're going to move you. We'll move you to the new building. Well, that didn't quite work out, and we ended up moving ourselves. And because I was in the vocational department, all of us, luckily we had the ag trailers, and so all of the career and technology teachers, or back then it was the vocational teachers, worked together and practically had to move ourselves over to the new building. So we would fill up these horse trailers and take off, and I think we probably rode in the back of the trailers as well, as with all the stuff in the trailer. And around a couple of corners, some file cabinet doors would fly open and papers would fly out, and we'd
put them back in, and then move them into the building. So it was an unusual move. It's not like we do now, where we have a maintenance department that moves us in nice covered vans. We moved in horse trailers and just random trailers that people had. And we moved ourselves and opened up Keller High School. So that was interesting.
After 6 decades on College Avenue, Keller ISD built 7 new campuses away from its early home through the 70s and 80s. Still, that growth was merely a precursor to what was to come, as the district would add 7 schools in the 1990s alone.
The biggest change in the district came in 1995 when Keller ISD opened up Fossil Ridge High School. For 84 years prior to that, all the district students had shared a single high school, all growing up to be Indians no matter what portion of the district they lived in.
Now the district had to adjust to a new challenge, being a multi-high school district.
I said, Mr. Mackey, we don't want to build this other high school. We want to have one big high school. We'll just kick people every year. We'll be good. He said, no, John, you're wrong. If you don't build the other high school, you're cheating your kids. And he's exactly right. When you build the extra school, twice as many kids get to play football. Number sense, drama, debate, band, choir. If you're one mega high school, you're cheating your kids. And he was exactly right.
The complexion of the district would continue to change with the construction of Central, Keller ISD's third high school, added in 2005, and Timber Creek's opening in 2009. Keller ISD had entered a new millennium with just 16 campuses. Over the next 11 years, there would be 22 new schools built, a rate of 2 campuses per year. The steps and actions taken to handle the influx of new students, new campuses, and a growing faculty and staff have defined Keller ISD and will continue to define the district in the years to come.
Difficult decisions made by administrators, school boards, and residents to invest in the education of our community's youth, including providing competitive wages for faculty and staff and a commitment to building new facilities to avoid overcrowding, have yielded immeasurable results.
As the district entered the second decade of the 21st century, Keller ISD has found itself rated one of the highest regarded school districts of its size, not only in Texas, but across the country. From its days educating a couple hundred students in a 4-room schoolhouse, to its present status as a massive suburban school system leading the way in educational achievement, technological advances, and financial efficiency, Keller ISD has always been synonymous with excellence.
The leaders and educators that have come before us have paved the way through hard work and determination to provide the best possible educational experience over the past 100 years. Along the way, our schools have been blessed with bright minds and character of some of the best students in the state.
The next century will surely hold new challenges and opportunities for the district to prove its resolve and provide even more exceptional educational opportunities for the future's youth.
For now, we celebrate the past, look toward the future, and continue on our mission, coming together as one community to engage students in exceptional educational opportunities.